Hey everybody, it's Happy Thursday. That means it's time for the Hammer and Nayls Show. I'm Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. Next to me is my partner, Jessie, who writes for All 49ers SI, and he has his own web channel as well. How you doing, Jesse?
I'm doing fantastic, Jack. The hurt of the NFC Championship loss has finally worn away, and the excitement of the offseason is starting to creep in. So I'm doing a lot better.
Yeah, I agree. If we were doing this show on Monday or Tuesday, it would have been a lot tougher go of it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Um, it's gotten better as the week's gone on, and it's really picked up the pace as far as off season and stuff like that. So it's gonna be fun. The one cool part about this is that um, it's only 6 months away instead of 7 plus. The run that the team went on this year got us through the dog days of the November and December mock draft season. And so we're starting to finally see those pop up on 49ers Twitter, really starting today. So that's kind of cool. That's one of the benefits of having the team do well. Uh, but I know we want to talk a little bit about this game. What was kind of maybe your big takeaways or your turning points of the game, kind of however you wanted to break it down?
Yeah, I said it on Twitter, and I still believe this even, 4 or 5 days later, and sitting through it and thinking about it and just trying to go through it all. I felt like that Packer game was the ultimate team win, and I felt like this was the ultimate team loss. And I think the defense did a great job. 20 points is fantastic. The offense needed to do better, but there were even times in that game where I felt like the defense was doing a horrible job, because I looked at it, and at the end of the first half, I think I said something along the lines of, this defense is playing terrible. They're lucky that only what 7 points have been put up at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like they couldn't get off the field on third down. Then the offense couldn't move the ball for extended periods of time, and so the defense was stuck on the field for so long. And then you look at the offensive side of things again. You had a whole fourth quarter where you really did almost nothing. Debo doesn't touch the ball outside of past that 11-minute mark or whatever it is, 12-minute mark. You have the drop pick. I felt like, a lot of people are talking about that drop pick, but not a lot of people are talking about the taunting penalty on Al Shair. Not a lot of people are talking about the penalty on Ward where he hit Beckham high. I just thought that there was so many things that went into that game, and you take away one of those things, any one of those things, and maybe that game changes completely. So I felt like it was the ultimate team loss. People have pressed me, hey, who who deserves the biggest blame, and I have gotten into that a little bit, but I would just say overall that a little bit more blame goes on the offense, obviously Shanahan and Jimmy, but I would say, you win as a team, you lose as a team. That is cliche, but in this one, I really do feel that was the case.
Yeah, I feel like there were chances early in the game that the 49ers missed because the quarterback overthrew a receiver and then didn't take a shot down the field. And early in the third quarter, that was there. Even maybe early in the first quarter as well, that he missed. Uh, but at the same time, you had some of that happen for Los Angeles as well, right? You had the one series where well, first off, you get the pick in the end zone, which saves them from getting points, even though after a long drive. And then you have the other drive where they don't get points at the end of the first half, but Cup drops a pass, it hits him right in the hands. It's going to be a big gain across the middle. And then you have the deep shot by Matthew Stafford, in which Jimmy Ward and nobody in the secondary knows where the ball is, that bounces off Skowronek's hands in the end zone. And then they end up getting a break there, and the Rams miss a field goal. And that's the only reason why they were at 7 points in that first half. But they really dominated the time of possession throughout the game. Not even really just in that period, but really throughout on third down. Like you said, I mean, they're 11 of 18, but you go back and you look at the numbers. And one of the things that I did kind of just playing around today, I was trying to get some numbers for how they did against Cooper Cup and back in week 18. And I noticed there was a lot of long third down completions in that game as well. We saw that happen on Sunday. Even though they really knocked him around early in that game in week 18, there was a lot of long third down conversions by Stafford, and that's part of why they got the lead that they did. And like you're saying, in the second half, the 49ers offense, you could see they were explosive throughout the game, right? Um, Other than the first possession because of the miss by Garoppolo. But you could see their second possession, they had a couple of explosive plays. And then the third possession was the deep shot to Ayuk and the long run by Deebo Samuel on the screen. And then they come down and they kick a field goal at the end. So you could see the offense was moving the ball. They're up 17-7. They feel like they're in control of the game. The defense goes down and gives up a touchdown right away to Los Angeles. You're still feeling okay. You're kind of get a little tense right there because it's only a 3 point lead. Garoppolo completes the pass out to Mitchell. He hits the one to Samuel. You're out by midfield. You get a 9-yard run by Mitchell, and you're feeling really good because now you're in second one on the Rams, 41-yard line, 42-yard line, somewhere right around there. And that's the point in the game where everything. That's where the 49ers lose the game. They lose the game on second and one, third and two. I don't mind the fact that they punted away, and then you lose and then you have the missed drop by Tart, and then you have right after that you have the 29-yard completion down the sidelines to Beckham, which turns into a 45-yard gain, like you said, because of the personal foul on Ward. Completely flips from their own 15 or 16 all the way across midfield, and they go on to tie the game with that. And at that point, Los Angeles has all of the momentum, and that's the series of the game. And I wrote an article about it this week, and I wrote it even on Sunday night in my post game wrap. Is that was the moment of the game when everything changed for the 49ers, because even though they only had a 3 point lead, they were in control at that moment. They were all the way looking like they were going to be in position. They don't score points on offense. The interception dropped by Tart, although they might not have scored points right there, it's going to drain clock off. And at the end of the game, that was important.
Well,
Especially, I'm sorry, real quick, also because if you remember at the end of the game, the Rams didn't have timeouts.
yeah, no, I mean McVay felt like he was pressing big time in that game, but
Mm-hmm.
was that the order? I could have sworn that the Tart stuff and all that happened first to make it 17-17. Then the 49ers got the ball, couldn't punch it in on second, third, and then punted it on fourth. Do I have that backwards? I could have sworn it was 17-17 at that point when that happened.
No, it was 17-14 at that point. The Niners had scored, the Rams came back down and scored, and then the Niners looked like they were driving, and then that's when everything fell apart. And then
Okay.
the series after that, after it's 17-17, that's the one where you have Garoppolo he has a wide open receiver on first down, he doesn't throw the ball, and then second and third down he's just pressured too much, and then the next series they now have the lead, and they're just pinning their ears back and coming after him, and it was they didn't have a chance really. I don't feel like Garoppolo had a chance on those last three plays, but the first down play of the other one, he screwed that one up.
Yeah, no, definitely did. Yeah, I don't know why I had those flipped in my mind, but you're right about that. It was definitely 17-14 at that point. But yeah, that was gosh, man, they had so many opportunities in that game, Jack. Like I just
Yes.
said it was Thursday and I was over it. And now that we're talking about it again, it's like, how did they lose that game, man? Like it's crazy because I do remember thinking, like, okay, so the 49ers got thoroughly outplayed in the first half. And at this point, they're up 10-7. I felt really, really good. I'm like, there's no way that they're going to get outplayed like that again in the second half. It's just not going to happen. Like they're going to come back. They were outplayed. They're still up. This game's over. We're going to the Super Bowl. Like that was the feeling I got. And then I'm like, well, how'd they get even outplayed even more in the second half after being thoroughly outplayed in the first? I don't know, man. They honestly, I felt like the Rams should have won by 2 scores. The way that I felt they played that much better in San Francisco all the way through that game.
Well, they did. That was the whole thing, right? You have the one play in the end zone, and then you have the missed field goal. Beside that, they should have been blowing the 49ers out in the first half. It should have been 17-10
Mm-hmm.
at best for the 49ers going in at halftime. But the way the game played out is how it's all played out all season for the 49ers, and that the defense makes a play. They just do enough to stay in the game. They score right at the end of the half to tie it up, and then they get the field goal to go in at halftime. Then they get the ball to start the second half, and the second half was kind of a flip of the first in terms of time of possession in the beginning, and then it went away after that one possession. And when the 49ers went down and scored a touchdown, I mean, the offense was looking really good. That was a really nice touchdown drive. The way they were able to make those plays, the catch by Jawan Jennings and the effort he made to get the third down. And
Mm.
but you're right, real quick, what you said as far as the opportunities that they blew. I was I look back at this game to me it feels a lot like the 1992 NFC Championship game when Steve Young and the 49ers lost to the Cowboys in a game that they should have won. They were the better team. They scored a touchdown on their opening drive, but it gets called back because of a penalty, and then things just kind of fall apart for them, and they're never able. And that's kind of how this game felt. Even though the 49ers were up, it felt like there were just so many missed opportunities. And uh, the one thing with Garoppolo and the way that this game played out is, as bad as he played and the plays that he missed, he had made the throws in the early sec, at the end of the first half. He made the plays to get them the lead. He made the throws the second possession of the second half to get them up by 10. He made the throws to get them out to midfield and across midfield, midway through the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter, whatever it was right there.
Mm-hmm.
The next time they had the ball back. And then the ball got taken out of his hands in the running game, which has been so good for the 49ers, just didn't get it done. I did the film breakdown with Grant, and in one of the discussions with Kyle Shanahan this week, he went through that series of plays because he's mentioned after the game and every time the media talked to him post game, the second and 1, third and 2 plays are the ones that haunt him. And he was specific, that the first and 10 play that led that little series off that I was talking about, that 9-yard gain from Mitchell, was the same play that they'd run earlier in the game where Deebo Samuel rips off a 9-yard run. They come back and they want to run the same play, but flipped. The problem is that instead of it being George Kittle that's leading up through the hole, it's supposed to be, Trent Sherfield. And like you said before we came on, Deebo Samuel's not even on the field, and there's no way that the way that they aligned that Sherfield's going to make the block on Weddle there. And it was just a tough situation for the 49ers. But kind of wanted to, that kind of leads us into the topic that I started this off with is, that second and 1 and third and 2. Is that a situation where if you have Trey Lance in the game, does he pick that up? And that's where, the title of the show is, does Trey Lance make a difference? And that's really kind of the thought process that I had in putting that together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great question, by the way. You really made me think with this one. But the other thing that real quick before we get to this is, I also remember at some point in that game thinking, okay, is Shanahan setting them up on first down here? Because I felt like play action was there. And when it was the second to last drive, I think, I was like, okay, this is it. Like, this is when they're going to go play action, first down. They're going to take a shot and they're going to get it. And it just never came. It was very odd. I know a lot of people have the assumption like, well, you can't go play action if you're not running the ball effectively. And I disagree, because they had put money in the bank throughout 2 games in this season where they ran all over the Rams. So that money was in the bank that you could have gone play action, even if you weren't effective. And the fact that you had basically run it on first down for a majority of that game, it was there. I felt like it was at least an option for you. And that one will stick in my craw a little bit as well. I felt like the play calling could have been slightly better on first down, especially. Not that he wasn't dialing up plays, not that plays weren't missed. Execution was poor in some areas. I get all of that, but he wasn't in his bag the way that he could have been. So there's just so many things that go into it. But as far as this question goes,
well, hold on, let's stop right there for a second.
Yeah, let's do
it. And just because what you brought up is something that I brought up in the stadium to the guy that was standing next to me during the game. Mm-hmm. I don't know who he was, just some guy standing next to me, but he was wearing a 49er hat. And at some point we both looked at each other and were like, are they going to run some play action here? Because it really feels like they're setting it up, because they're not running the ball well on first down, but they keep running the ball on first down and they're not going anywhere. And they're giving themselves second and long, third and long. It's like, are they gonna run a play action here at some point? And it never really came. They tried once, I think, at the start of the second half, and Garoppolo almost threw behind Deebo Samuel instead of taking the shot down the field. And from that point on, it just felt like there was no play action.
Yeah, it was very interesting. And again, I'm sure that's a thought that a lot of people had because they were just running into a brick wall on first down every single play. It was
Mhm.
doing nothing for them unless you were trying to set up something later. But
Mhm.
yeah, second and 1, 3rd and 2. Does Lance pick that up? Man, that's a tough question. I think you really brought up the crux of the problem when you were talking through this moment or these moments here, is the fact that Debo was not on the field for either one of these plays. That's what gets me because if I remember correctly, so Mitchell had ran for the 9 yards, but the play before that is they had hit Debo on like just a little pattern coming out of the backfield. It wasn't quite a Texas route because he never cut over the middle, but just a little pattern coming out of the backfield
Mhm.
that got him a first down. Then Mitchell ran for the 9. So it's not like Debo touched it on first down. Then he sits out second down. Wouldn't you want to get him in on third down? And if you're not going to get him in on third down because he's tired, like to me, that's one of those points where maybe I'll burn a timeout to make sure that my best player's on the field. But that didn't happen. So maybe if Trey Lance is in, sure, it definitely helps the run game. You're going 11 on 11, but I also feel like if it was flip flopped, right? Like let's say it was 2nd and 2 and then 3rd and 1. If it's 3rd and 1, Jimmy's sneaking the ball. They're getting a first down most likely.
Mhm.
That's one thing that he does very well is sneak the ball. So God, I'm not willing to say that if Lance was on the field that they for sure would have gotten it. I think the play call was a bit sketchy. I think the Rams were tuned in and ready to roll. If Debo's not on the field and Lance is on the field, man, I'm not willing to say that they would have picked it up with Lance. I can't do it.
Yeah, my 2020 hindsight, ultra, looking back now, because if you're, with everybody saying that Shanahan was ultra conservative in that situation and so on and so forth, my ultra conservative, if I was Shanahan in that situation and I was being conservative, what I would have done on 2nd and 1 is I would have just run a quarterback sneak with Jimmy Garoppolo. I would have picked up the first down, then I would have got back into my play calling rhythm and maybe gone back to that play that he just ran on first down that was so successful and run it out of exactly the same formation, do everything exactly the same way. That's the way that I am. But to the question as far as does Lance pick that up, and I understand that it was asked to me through my mailbag question, and I'm going to do up a write up about it too. But I don't think that he does, and I think the reason that's asked is because of his ability to run the read option and run the ball in this situation. Obviously, not the pass piece, but you got to go back in his last start against Houston. They shut him down in 3rd and 1, 2nd and 1, and 3rd and 2 situations. If you remember in that game, that's part of the reason why they were. There were a couple of short yard situations where they were shut down. They didn't even kick field goals. So I think that in that situation, if you're asking Lance to be the running back as the quarterback, like what I think a lot of people think of it as, the answer would be no. If you have Lance in that situation and you decide that you're going to run your offense and maybe play action with him out of it, I think that's a much better option. I, I, one thing with Trey Lance, and at least so far, I haven't been impressed with his speed. Right? I know that he's fast, but he doesn't seem like when he runs the boot action, like he's getting out of there. You know what I mean? Because it's a situation on 2nd and 1 where if you have a guy like Trey Lance, 2nd, 1 and 3rd and 2, where you can run that boot, run it hard, and have that guy boot out there and have him get one-on-one on the edge. And if you think about like Steve Young when he was the quarterback of the 49ers, and they used to do that with him, and he had to get his speed out there. And I just hope that when Lance's time comes next year, that we see that speed part of his game be there more than we saw this year.
Yeah, you know what? I remember people were all over me when I made a comment about that. This was before he had actually, I think at this point he was drafted, but I had talked about that. And I had talked about when he rolls out and he gets to the edge, he's not really beating many people to the edge. That's not his game. And people are like, "Oh, have you even watched Lance on film?" Like, well, yeah, quite a bit. That's kind of where I'm coming up with this, and it shows up in the NFL. That's not. I just don't think that's his mo, Jack. You know what I mean? Like, he's just not. He's not the fastest guy in the world. I like to me when I look at him, he's like Patrick Mahomes is really effective running the ball when he needs to. But that's what I look at Trey Lance as. Not like Patrick Mahomes is the fastest guy in the world, but I feel like once the edge crashes on Lance, very rarely is he breaking contain and getting to the outside. He's breaking contain and he's moving in the pocket, keeping his eyes downfield, or he's busting it up the middle. He's just not that guy that's gonna you crash down with both ends and he's going to go Lamar Jackson on you, run all the way around that crap and bust it for 30 yards. Like that's just not the type of player he is. And so, as you were talking through that, like I just remember saying that and people thought I was crazy, but he's just not that guy. But here's one thing I can think of. And, an interesting thing if they're going to continue to do, which I think they should squash it, but if they're going to do this Trent Williams and motion thing, here's what I think could have worked in that scenario. If you're going to put Lance in, if you just going forward in a big, third down and one situation or third down and two, you move Trent in motion, you bootleg Lance, like you said, right? But you almost get him out on the edge and have Debo as an option, like a pitch option. So you've got those two out on the edge and you got Trent Williams blocking for him. I think that would be a real fun play that actually could work quite a bit. But other than that, I really don't think Trey Lance is that guy. I think he's the type of guy that once he picks up speed, he definitely can run away from you. But he's not going to go 0 to 60 like that. That's just not his game. Plus, again, that's what I like about him. I feel like one of the things that bugs me about Jimmy is that his skill set is not that of Lance's, but his mind is like gunslinger mentality sometimes. Not in the sense that he's going to throw it downfield, but it's like, oh, I'm going to roll out here and try to squeeze it into this window that my arm's not good enough for that. But when I see Trey Lance, I feel like it's the opposite. He has the arm strength to make plays like that, but he's ultra conservative. He keeps his eyes downfield. He's going to try to stay behind the line of scrimmage and make a play. And he's not going to try to fit it into just super tight windows. So, for me, he's just not the player that I think some people assume he is based off of the limited film they have, his athleticism, his arm strength. They make assumptions. I don't know, but to me, that's just not who he is as a player. I don't see that. I never have.
I agree with you from the standpoint of Trey Lance is not a scrambler. He's not a guy that's going to drop back. Well, when he's comfortable, he's not going to drop back and just take off running. He's going to try to throw the ball, and there's plenty of times when you watch him on film at North Dakota State where he's fighting to stay in the pocket, move around, or just stay behind the line of scrimmage to get the ball out of his hands that way instead of taking off running. I'm just saying, and for a guy who has the speed that he has, it would be nice to see him be able to do that. And so it'll be interesting to see, because when you watch him and Jimmy Garoppolo on the field at practice or whatever, you can see the difference in their speed with their feet.
Oh,
and
for sure.
And you would expect to see Lance be able to get out on the edge and run, just to run a boot. I'm not even saying to run like a scrambler. I'm just saying to be able to run a boot and be a threat to take the ball off and run and get off to the edge like that. So we'll see. I mean, it's an interesting thing to keep an eye on as we move forward. But
he's not very I think the best way to explain it is he's fast, but he's not quick, right? Like there's a difference. Like you look at Kyler Murray, Kyler's both, but Russell Wilson's a good example. I don't think Russell Wilson's the fastest guy in the world, but he's very quick. Like he can get away from things and get out of things. And I just don't like Trey Lance is kind of big and lumbering a little bit. Now, once he gets on the move, yeah, like I said, he'll outrun you, but he's just not super quick. But he's strong and he can shrug off one-arm tackles, and he can get away because of that. But yeah, anyways, you got some super chats. So
yeah, no, there's the one here from James. James, thanks for the donation. He says, I know Debo was simply outplaying everyone, but did the offense seem sort of a nil the last 5 games? No big chunk plays and minimal use of Georgie. Talking about George Kittle right there. Mm-hmm. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I definitely think that a little bit. Going into that game, I had made a note that Ayuk and Kittle had combined for only 10 catches in the first 2 games of the playoffs. And I'd set an over-under at 6.5 catches, and I think they only combined for 6 in that game. So, that's 2 big weapons. Ayuk and Kittle to get 16 catches in 3 playoff games, that's rather low for me. They were very Debo reliant. They were very reliant on the run game, which makes a lot of sense. I get all that, but I just felt like there were multiple ways to win that game. And, whether it's you're a little bit more creative on first down, like we talked about, or you just say, hey, we got a player that's better than the guy that's guarding him. We're going to go to him until you make us not go to him. And that's Ayuk. I felt like Ayuk could have gotten 200 yards receiving if they had just kept feeding him the ball. You look at what happened with the 49ers versus Miami last year when Allen was on the field. Fitzpatrick just attacked him over and over and over. And the 49ers have, that's just never been their MO. I don't know if that's because of the quarterback. I don't know if that's a Shanahan. I'm not sure, but I felt like Ayuk really had a fantastic matchup over there and could have taken advantage of it until they really made them stop it. And then that can open up other things. So I agree with you. I think it was a little bit vanilla, and there were ways to win that game on offense.
Yeah, I disagree with it being vanilla. And I also disagree with the no chunk plays from the standpoint of the reason there weren't any chunk plays is, well, Kittle dropped the one that he should have had in the chunk play that he should have had in Green Bay. Garoppolo missed Kittle with the chunk play in Los Angeles. The other reason that you don't see the chunk plays is because Garoppolo's just not throwing the ball to the guys that are open for the chunk plays. I mean, if you take a minute, James, and go check out my YouTube channel, you're already on the YouTube channel, obviously, but if you go check out the film breakdown that I did on Tuesday with Grant, it's all over the film. He's got as you're talking about Jesse Brand Ayuk, he's got him open in the middle of the field 2 or 3 times, and he just doesn't get him the ball, doesn't try to throw the ball to him. And it's so frustrating when you watch it. It's just, that's why I'm saying, I look at the film and Garoppolo had the team in a position where they could win the game, but his misses made the margin for error so small that it shouldn't have been that way. If he just throws, there's one, it's all, you guys have seen it all over Twitter. If you're on Twitter, he's got him, he throws the ball, a check down to Mitchell for 12 yards, but he's got a touchdown if he just throws the ball to Ayuk, who isn't even covered. He breaks across the middle and nobody's even paying attention to him, and there's nobody there except for linebackers he's got to get the ball over. It's frustrating. There was another one, the second possession of the game, where he throws it to Ayuk, and Ayuk gets tackled. The ball gets knocked down, but he's got Juwan Jennings breaking deep over the middle with the safety behind him. And if he just puts the ball up in the air and just gives his guy a chance, I'd rather see a quarterback take the chance down the middle on the deep throw there than have it almost get picked off by a linebacker in at 8 to 12 yards or whatever that was to Ayuk. So the chunk plays were there. This leads to the conversation on Trey Lance, and leads to another piece of it, in that you and I have had this discussion, but I want to see the 49ers, when Trey Lance takes over, I don't want to see this offense change. I want to see him run the offense that we've seen the 49ers employ with Jimmy Garoppolo, because if they do that, he's going to be better and the offense is going to be more explosive because it's all there in the passing game for him.
Yeah, I listen, and here's the thing. Just to be fair, I have not watched the all 22 from this. Obviously, I've got it, and normally I geek out on it first thing on Monday, but season was over, and I didn't want to put myself through it, to be honest with you. um, but yeah, I'm sure it was there. Here's why I'm gonna say it was vanilla.
Uh-huh.
Is I think that obviously it's not vanilla in the sense that you're doing some creative things with Debo, right? But at some point, like everybody in the world knows that when Debo's in the backfield lined up, 99% of the time you're handing him the ball.
Sure.
So, you know, when they added that wrinkle of that Texas route in the Packer game, I thought it was beautiful. And then we just talked about it. His only touch in the fourth quarter was him coming out of the backfield. That was there all game long. And I felt like there was just some creativity they could have done. And then, we talk about first down, no play action. It just, to me, it got a little bit blah. Now, understandably, maybe coach is looking at it going, listen, man, I don't know what to do. I just dialed up 6 plays that this dude missed. I don't trust him to throw it. We're just going to run the ball on the first down. We're going to run the clock and pray to God that our defense gets us out of here, and we'll figure out the Super Bowl after that. I don't know what's going through his mind, and it's impossible for me to know, but I definitely think there were some opportunities for better play calling. And again, I'm not an expert, but if I can look at the game and go, well, they're going to run the ball here. Oh, Debo's in the backfield. They're going to run the ball. Like, at some point, like, if I know that, you don't think that their opponents know what's coming,
Mm-hmm.
just change it up a little bit. That's my only thing.
Yeah, and there's other
But I
super
agree
chats
with
we're
you.
going to get to, but this is a really good one because it goes into all kinds of different areas. And I do see what you're saying from that standpoint. I think part of the problem in this game, and this goes back to the issues on defense, and the defense not being able to get off the field. The 49ers only ran 44 offensive plays. before those last two offensive possessions. They weren't on the field on offense hardly at all. And when you're limited with the number of snaps, you've got to be perfect and you got to be precise. And the 49ers are not a high volume passing team. They're going to run the ball and they're going to try to run it and they're going to try to limit the Garoppolo to about 25, maybe. They really want their perfect game with Jimmy Garoppolo is right around 25 to 30, and I think that's going to be about the number with Lance too. Is in that 25 to 30 range.
Yeah.
That's kind of where they want to live. Maybe a little more if they have to be, but that's where they want to be. And in this game, they just they were just limited to the snaps that they were able to get. Really, it was just it was really. I think that's really what minimized their offense was the fact that their defense couldn't get off the field, and so even in the fourth quarter, when the Rams were going down the field, they for their field goals, those were long 9-10 play drives that took up about 4 and 5 minutes off the clock or somewhere around there. So it all kind of plays
Those
together.
third and long jacks that kind of turned into their bugaboo towards the end of the season. It happened a lot against Tennessee, as you
Yeah.
talked about week 18, and then again in this game. It's something that they got to get figured out for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Let's jump over to this one real quick. Just a quick one. Tapia, thank you very much for the donation. Y'all are a great duo. Trey area time. It definitely is going to be Trey time in 2022. Let's see what else we've got. There's another one. Got two more down here. We've got Jeremy. Big Jeremy. Good to see you. Thanks for the donation. He says, Yimmy era is over. Thanks for your time served, Jim. Yeah, it is. It is. But it was a pretty good run in 19 and 21. If those injuries hadn't happened. And then Keneal, thank you for the donation. He says, "Hey Jack, who misses open receivers more, Ricky Trey or Jimmy?" Shoot, I think that it's hard to say because he didn't play enough. He only played the 2 games. I mean, it'll be interesting. That's one of the things we're going to see, but I don't think that we're going to see some of the misses that we saw from Jimmy Garoppolo with Trey Lance. I think we're going to see the ball go down the field more often, and he's going to pull the trigger on some of those throws that we didn't see from Garoppolo. So I'm hopefully we'll be able to come back and talk about this a year from now, and the answer is going to be that Jimmy is missed more of those, and that we're seeing Trey Lance take those shots and hit them.
I think you had a great comment, and you probably don't even realize what you said when you were talking through it, but it's exactly how I feel. You talked about Jimmy, how you would rather see him push it down the field and get intercepted because of that versus 8 yards down the field and get picked off by a linebacker over the middle. You look at Trey Lance's interceptions, and that's exactly what they were. It was him taking chances and pushing the ball down the field. And I just don't have an issue with that. I really don't. I'll take that all day long. If you're trying to be aggressive and push it downfield and you throw a pick, by all means, like I'll live and die by that sword, because I know that also watching those games, he passes up some of those checkdowns and he'll make an unbelievable play. So it's one of those things that you're going to have to live by it and die by it until he's got it fully figured out. And then hopefully you're just living by it. So that's kind of what excites me about Trey.
Yeah, and the deal with Lance too is that I don't know. You see him take those shots down the field a little bit further, and if it's third down and you're in 3rd and 6, and you've got a receiver running at 8 yards and he's pretty well covered, and you got another one breaking down the field, take the deep shot down the field, and you got 4 things that are really going to happen, right? You're going to either get a completion, or it's going to be incomplete. Those are whatever. You might get a turnover, or you might get a pass interference. I mean, two of them are
Right.
pretty good, right? I mean, that's one of the things with Garoppolo why we don't see a lot of pass interference calls when he's playing quarterback, is because they don't throw the ball down the field. We saw Trey Lance do that against Houston, and I kept joking with Rich Madrid on Twitter about it, because he at one point during the season said, I don't think we're ever going to see the 49ers throw a quarterback from the 49ers throw the corner post. And then they ran it 2 times against Houston in the second half. And the first time they do it as a long pass interference call, and the next one's a touchdown.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to the Trey Lance era. I'm glad the way that they managed it the way they did. And I think he's going to be better for it. And I'm looking forward to what's going to happen here in 2022.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm fully with you. I was just reading that super chat.
The new one that's down there at the bottom,
Yeah.
from JB. JB, he says, JB, that's it. 499. Thank you for the donation. He says, I know everyone talks about the Houston game was just Houston defense. I understand, but Trey's accuracy to Debo on the touchdown that gets you excited. Yeah, well, I mean, if I'm okay, if you're all right with me, just rattling
Yeah,
off for a couple minutes
sure.
here. For me, the excitement for me with that game is seeing the mistakes he makes in the first quarter, and then the adjustments that he makes in the second quarter with the throw to Brandon Ayuk, because he screws that up in the beginning of the game and doesn't throw it, but he comes back. Shanahan comes back to it and he throws it. Um, it's taking the shot down the field to Ayuk on the pass interference. And for me, the throw to Debo was cool. But for me, the one that shows that gets me excited, having watched too much of this guy's tape from North Dakota State, was the throw down the middle to George Kittle, which is a throw that if you watched him at North Dakota State, he wouldn't attempt. He just wouldn't try to throw it over linebackers like that. And for him to take that shot down the field, that showed me the growth. And that's why when I talk about, for me, thinking that the fact that he did not play this year and that he grew more by playing on the scout team than he did by playing in games, because he learned on the scout team, he wasn't worried about throwing the ball and getting interceptions on the scout team. He was able to take chances and make mistakes and whatever. And they talked about that during the season. But for me, those are the ones out of the Houston game that excite me. The growth in game, the growth from what I saw from him at North Dakota State to here. That's what I have. What about you?
Yeah, well, I'm looking at Andrew's comment as well, and he says Houston picked Lance once and dropped 3. That's not true. That's just factually incorrect. So, I I mean, is there 3 drop picks that you can remember? There's one on the sideline right before the end of the half, which I don't even know why Kyle called the play there, 'cause if I remember correctly, there was 7 seconds left. They had no timeouts. I thought it was a weird play call anyways because they were in field goal range, but other than that, there was the one where the middle linebacker or the linebacker tipped it. That was nowhere near being picked. I mean, where are these 3 drop picks? I'm
I
not.
I don't know about three, but I know there was definitely the one on the sidelines uh, where the underneath defender got there. But because I remember thinking it during the game, and then I remember talking about it on the film breakdown. But yeah, I don't think there was three. I know there was
I
one,
don't
and
either.
there might have been a couple of balls that were knocked away. But
Yeah.
whatever.
Knocked away and should have been picked or different things though sometimes. So,
Yes.
but yeah, as far as Trey goes, I was having a conversation with my co-host the other day. He's a Lions fan, and I, as I was talking through it, I started to realize that I kind of grade Jimmy on a curve, like it's his own bell curve, and the way that I see it is like he makes that throw to Ayuk, right? Great example. Makes the go throw to Ayuk, and I remember going, "Oh wow, that's a really good throw." But is it like an amazing throw, or is it just because we don't see Jimmy make those throws, right? Like, so there are times where I look at Jimmy's throws and I go, "Oh wow," but then I realize I'm only saying that because we just don't see any of these throws from Jimmy, and so when it happens, I'm shocked. But there are legitimate big time throws that we can talk about. 3 of them in that game, just the Houston game alone, where the one to Ayuk that you talked about, obviously the touchdown to Debo, the one to Kittle over the middle, where I look at that and I say, I don't care what quarterback that is. Those are wow throws. And that's what excites me when this kid can come in and play minimal and make throws that just wow me for any quarterback. And then I can watch Jimmy for a whole season and I can count on my hand maybe 4 or 5 of these throws that just wow me for any quarterback. That's what gets me excited about Trey Lance.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things to be excited about. I mean, all you had to do was be there for training camp the first 2 weeks and see the throws that he was making down the field to be excited about him. I mean, he leveled off a little bit, and I wasn't ready. I thought that it wasn't time for him to play, but there were some really good things in the beginning of that, and I think the time that he's taken is going to really play well for the 49ers. You go back, let's step back to a conversation that you and I had before the season.
Hmm.
And we talked about, neither one of us felt like the 49ers were going to get to the Super Bowl, right? We felt like whether it was Garoppolo or Lance, you were going to get to the net. The farthest you were going to get was a championship game. I remember having the conversation and saying, at least the way I remember it, was that with Garoppolo, they can make a run. I don't think they're going to make it to the Super Bowl, though, because, there were some historical things. And the same things were there with Lance. And The 49ers were able to put a plan in place in which they got themselves almost to the Super Bowl, and at the same time they developed Lance. And well, there's always going to be arguments that Lance should have been playing. I feel like the way that they did it with him really suited best for him. And I know some people felt like after the Houston game, he should have played from there on. And here's what I'll say about it, because I've been thinking about it, is their whole thing, I think, this year was they wanted him to just experience everything, and so that there was nothing that he hadn't seen before. And when he comes in next year, he's going to have played a couple of games. He's going to have gone through a full season on the road. He's going to have gone through a playoff run and witnessing it from the sidelines. And so there's not going to be a situation where he goes to the stadium not understanding what it's going to be like.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if the 49ers had it up to them, they wouldn't have played him at all. I think Jimmy getting injured for a couple games was the best thing that could have happened to him, because you kind of got a mix of both, right? You have me on one side saying, "Hey, he should have started week 1." And you have you that you're like, "Hey, I really think he should sit this year." And the fact that they were able to get both was perfect. And no, I mean it really is,
Yeah, you're
because
right.
he did. He got to sit. You got to see the growth. I mean, let's be honest. There was certainly growth
Mm-hmm.
from the Arizona game to the Texans game. Heck, there was growth throughout both of those games. So when I see it, the fact that he was able to play, I think was huge. But sitting didn't do him bad by any means. So I feel like even though the plan was to sit him, the fact that they weren't able to do just that and they were able to get both in worked out really well. And again, set up the fan base for optimism. If you're looking at the way Trey played, and if you look at it the way that I think we're looking at those games and saying, hey, there's something here, right? Like, we can see the talent for sure. Is it raw? Absolutely, but it's there. And if he can improve on that, he's definitely worthy of being the starter next year. That's what brings excitement about Trey Lance going forward.
Yeah, and then let's kind of move off of this topic to just another one, because we know that Garoppolo is going to be gone. Nobody's saying that for sure, but you could pretty much tell that by what Garoppolo said, although the 49ers didn't say it that way. The 49ers are going to need to find a backup, though. I don't think they're going to go into this next season with and bring, even if they re-sign Nate Sudfeld, I don't think they're going to go in with just Jimmy Garoppolo and Nate Sudfeld as their quarterback room. Who, in your estimation, would be the ideal backup candidate for Lance?
I'd really like to see Marcus Mariota. If he doesn't get a starting job somewhere else, I think he would be perfect. I mean, I already know, like, just knowing his temperament, watching him at Oregon, being a big Oregon fan, I just know what type of person he is. And I feel like he would be the perfect person for Trey Lance, just personality wise. I think that he would be a really good teammate. He would help Lance in development. And then, heaven forbid, if Lance got injured, I mean, he could come in and keep that thing rolling. So I think Mariota would be the perfect backup for Trey Lance. Just looking at it all the way around, veteran, good guy, good teammate, smart, extremely smart, a lot like Lance, I think, in that manner. Very intelligent individual. And then also the fact that, some of the same skill sets, different obviously, but similar. He's not unathletic by any means. He's very athletic. And so I think that would just be the perfect guy for Trey Lance's backup.
Yeah, I would. The one thing that's a really good name, and the only question I'd have there, and you kind of answered it, was would he be able to be a mentor to Trey Lance? I think that's the biggest piece. I think whoever they bring in, they need to obviously be able to play at some level, right? Better
Yeah.
than they need to be able to come in and win games with him for a game or two. Uh, and I think that they would be able to win games with Mariota. I think they'd be able to win
Yeah.
games with a couple of different guys, but that would be my question: is he a guy that can come in and, like what Steve Young said, is he a guy that can come in, sit down with them, and watching film and say, that doesn't work. You can't be doing that. This is what you need to do here, and do those kind of things. Would that be something that he'd be able to do in this system?
Yeah. And I think time would tell with that, but I think where he would be able to help is just in knowing what it's like to be uh to have a franchise gifted to you. I mean, that's what happened with Mariota. He was a high draft pick, tons of expectations coming out of college. And, he knows exactly what Lance is going through. And so helping him manage those expectations, especially if he has a bad game, what does that look like? How does Lance recover from a bad game? And I expect him to do fine in that. But knowing that he has the shoulder of a franchise right there on him, and knowing what that feels like after a bad game and being able to talk him through those moments, I think just as a man and as a leader of a franchise, that's where I think he would come in most valuable in helping Trey Lance navigate through that type of situation.
Yeah, that's a really good one. That's a real good name. And I threw out last year, and it's not going to happen because he's retired now. But if it had been this year, I felt like the perfect guy for the 49ers would have been Alex Smith as the perfect kind of guy to have brought in because of exactly kind of what you just said. The going through it as a high, he was the number one pick, and he had a pretty rough go of it during his time here, and he kind of learned his way through it. And he's a pretty smart guy, really understands the game. Probably has a good coaching mentality, and he'd be able to come in. Obviously, now he's not an option because he's no longer playing. But uh, if Mariota's a guy that can kind of do mentor him in a way that maybe like an Alex Smith can, then yeah, that's a really good name, and somebody the Foreigners should take a look at if he's available. I think I'd rather have Mariota than somebody like I keep saying Tyrod Taylor's name show up, but I think a guy like Mariota would be someone who I'd lean towards more.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind Tyrod. I wouldn't like hate it by any means. I just think Mariota would be that, and selfishly I like Mariota. So I'm an Oregon Duck guy. Like, come on, man, bring him over.
there, right there you go. I mean, yeah, no, I know. I remember his time with Oregon pretty well. My niece is a big Oregon Duck fan, so there was a lot of Oregon Duck games during those times that we watched. So, yeah, I think that would be a good name to go after if he's available and he's willing to come over from Vegas. Uh, we're getting towards the end, but I know there was a couple of other topics we want to hit. So I'm going to jump on. Let's jump to this one because I know we'll have time for this one. I don't think we'll have time for the other one we were looking at. But the 49ers future, are you more optimistic about what's coming up or are you more pessimistic?
Gosh. All right. So I feel like there's reasons for both. Let me just kind of quickly sell you on both of them here. So reasons to be pessimistic. First of all, I think that this move, this Alex Mack thing that's looming, that's a big deal to me because I feel like if Alex Mack retires, that's really going to put them behind the eight ball a little bit. It's going to force them to either pay for a center or draft somebody early. And now you've got a rookie coming in without that veteran presence there. And, that could fall apart pretty quickly. I also think there's a lot of expectations that are going to be heaped on Trey Lance. If this team doesn't win for any reason, whether it's injury, what have you, there's going to be a lot of that pressure thrown his way. And again, you just never know what's going to happen in the future. Nobody could predict COVID being a thing, right? Nobody thought that after the 2019 season that they wouldn't win in 2020, but it happened, right? Like this team was relatively healthy. They had those early injuries, but really coming down the stretch of the season, they were a very healthy team. That's the first time they've been that way in a while. So do those injuries creep back up? Does the tougher schedule hurt them? There's just so many unknowns. And so for me, those are some reasons to be pessimistic. But ultimately, I am optimistic. And obviously, I'm optimistic because of Trey Lance. We've talked about it all show, but I'm also optimistic because there's a lot of talent on this team. I mean, you've got Debo and Ayuk, and Jennings is starting to come into his own. Kittle, fantastic player. You've got the best left tackle in the game, one of the best middle linebackers, Bosa. Ward's going to be here. I just feel like there's so much talent on this team, and a majority of it's going to be locked up long term, and a lot of it's young. So the fact that you've got that, I just feel like the future overall is very bright for this team. So I am optimistic, but I think that there are definitely some reasons for pessimism as well.
Yeah, I definitely lean more towards the optimistic side, but you just kind of brought me down a little bit. The same time, no, I'm partly joking, I'm partly not because you are right. If Alex Mack moves on, that's a big hole in the middle of the 49ers offensive line. And I know over in the comment section somebody said Daniel Brunskill. God no, you don't want Daniel Brunskill to have to play center unless you
Yeah,
absolutely have to. Um,
Jake Brendel.
you know, yeah, I mean there were guys last year that were right there for them to go after, and they went after the veteran, and it was a little bit maybe a little bit less costly. But hopefully Mac will come back. But if Mac does, I feel like there's a lot of reason for optimism because you have really good players. You're throughout like the core of the team, right? You mentioned so many of them, especially on the defensive side. You have a really strong core. You're going to have Nick Bosa back. You're going to have Eric Armstead. Armstead's a guy who, if you're going to move him inside full time, which I think you really probably should, and you should renew his deal and bring that cap hit down because I don't think you want to pay him $20 and $23 million over the next 2 years. But he's shown that he could be a good player for you on the interior. If that's where he plays, he's a better interior player. Yeah, and then on the linebacker, obviously Fred Warner's a stud, and then you get to the secondary, and Jimmy Ward's a pretty good player, and I think Ambry Thomas is going to continue to grow, and Emmanuel Mosley showed out pretty well for the most part. Uh, so I just feel like the team has a lot of layers to it. I also feel like their 2021 draft class is going to start to show more dividends in 2022. I remember having talked with Grant on draft night about uh, Aaron Aaron Banks, and we both had the feeling between Aaron Banks and the Trey Sermon draft that on that second night of the draft that they were building this team to be a little bit more power heavy once Trey Lance takes over because that's kind of the way it all went. So I think we're going to see that maybe come out this year in 2022. Um, so for me, it's a little bit more on the optimistic side, but I can definitely get on the pessimistic train with some of the things that you're talking about, and there's some other reasons to look at it too in terms of if DJ Jones was a big piece in the middle. If he doesn't come back and you're having to replace him with Javon Kinlaw, what does that look like? And you know you have two rookies that you can slide into both of the guard spots if you choose to, but is that the way to go? Because we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I think another reason for optimism is the fact that D'Amico Ryans is coming back. That's huge. I think
Yes.
that's absolutely huge because there was definitely early on in the season you could see he was trying to figure things out and had a little bit of up and down as far as play calling went. But once he got it under control, it was fantastic. And so next year they're going to hit the ground running with that. But then going back to the pessimistic side, does Kosera come back? Because that is a huge, huge piece. And I believe that he's not under contract anymore. So they're going to have to figure out a way to get him back in this building, regardless of how they do it. I don't know if maybe that's why they made the move to get rid of Embry was to make him the assistant head coach. I don't know. I don't know what his aspirations are as a coach, but I'm doing whatever it takes to get that dude back in the building. They have to have him on this team or on this
Yeah,
coaching unit.
yeah. I think Chris Kosaric and having him on your defensive staff is huge. I think what he brings to the table, it's pretty clear.
Yeah.
Uh, their ability to what they were able to get out of guys on that level, at that level of the defense. He's an amazing coach and really brings out the best in those guys. So I sure as heck hope that they don't lose him because that would be as big of a deal as bringing back D'Amico Ryans was. That would be, I think, just as big of a loss to lose Chris Kosaric as a position coach on the defensive line.
Yeah, that would be massive. So hopefully they get him back.
Yeah, so we were all kind of going through a good uphill path here. Jesse brought us down. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, but it's the other thing too to be optimistic about. Let's end this with something optimistic. I got to come up with something optimistic to make myself feel good for the rest of the night. But it's that they're going to be playing a third place schedule. I think that's a nice bonus.
Yeah.
For them, and it's kind of funny because the Packers, it'll be interesting to see like if they don't have Aaron Rodgers next year, and some of these top level teams I saw too where they were saying like the teams that are playing first place schedules, those first place teams in the NFC all are going through a kind of going to be going through some turnover. Like Tampa Bay is going to have a new quarterback, and Arizona and Green Bay might have one too. So maybe it's not going to be a bonus. Who knows?
Yeah. See, there you go. You're bringing it down. Jeez. Come on, Jack.
Right?
My gosh. No, I'll give some reason for optimism as well is, I think there's been a lot of talk about, how well the 49ers have drafted or haven't, or maybe some of the bad contracts they gave out. We look at McKinnon and D Ford. I really think the 49ers, it kind of got things in motion at this point. I'm actually really confident in that front office to make some really good moves this offseason, be smart with money and bring in the right players. I feel like they've really started to hit their stride as to what they're looking for. They've got the core of the team built and they're just trying to fill in some of these open pieces. And so I look at it and I have a lot of confidence actually in this front office to make the right moves this offseason because now this is their what sixth offseason they're going into. I just feel like they've kind of got a cadence down and they're going to smash this offseason.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, like I said, I feel like they have a pretty good core group in place. I think, and that goes throughout the organization because I wrote that up in a mailbag blog a couple of weeks ago because they were asking me if I was concerned about possibly losing not John Lynch, but Adam Peters and so on. And I would say when you look at the 49ers, they have a really good depth chart when it comes to their team, but they also have a really good depth chart in their coaching staff and in their front office. I think this team is built for to kind of sustain the success for a long time. As long as the quarterback comes in here and plays the way that they expect him to play in 2022, I would expect to see this team right back in the NFC playoffs. I don't know about the championship game, but I can see them competing in the playoffs again next year.
Absolutely. There we go. See? Optimism.
That's right. Turn that frown upside down, right?
Something
Isn't that what they say? Something like that. So,
like
yes,
that.
um, that was the show for tonight. But I wanted to see first off before we jump off. Do you have anything coming up on your channel, Jesse?
Yeah, actually in an hour. So we're going at 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific. We're going to go a little bit deeper into the 49ers offseason, just some early things. And then my co-host, he's going to be going over the Lions offseason. So we're going to be kind of doing a tandem talk there. So check that out. 10:30 in the East, 7:30 in the West over at Last Second Sports.
Sweet. Yeah. No, if you guys are following, if you're not already over on Last Second Sports and subscribed over there, make sure you get over there and subscribe to Jesse's channel. Just want to say thanks to everybody that jumped on and watches Hammer and Nails every Thursday night. We did a little bit earlier tonight because there's some things going on, so we had to throw it in. So I appreciate Jesse being able to rearrange his schedule a little bit for me. And again, I appreciate everybody that comes on and checks us out. If you could please hit the like button, if I can speak, hit the like button, hit subscribe if you're not already subscribed. That little bell notification, click on that thing so you don't miss when we go live. And then get yourself over to 49ers.pressdemocrat.com, the Inside the 49ers blog over there. That's where all of my writing is. Try to update that. I was updating that throughout the season on a daily basis. And as you know, in the NFL, the offseason never stops. So get yourself over there and check that out. And thank you, everybody, for joining. Come back. A lot more stuff going to be happening on this channel throughout the offseason. So keep coming back and checking it out. Thank you so much for joining us on Thursday night, and have a great rest of your night and a great weekend.